If today felt louder than you expected, you can set it down here for a little while. Lumi and Maple live in a small cottage where the lamps are warm, the rain is never hurried, and no feeling has to explain itself before it is welcome. These 6 stories are for the days when you need comfort more than advice. Take a slow breath, loosen your shoulders, and let the room grow quiet. Rain had been tapping the cottage windows since late afternoon. Maple heard every footstep in the hallway, and each time, his head lifted with hope. Lumi was later than usual. He could have curled up by the fire. Instead, he carried his blanket to the door and waited beneath the little amber lamp. When the lock finally turned, Lumi stepped inside with a damp scarf and tired eyes. The day was still clinging to her. Maple did not jump. He did not ask why she was late or what had gone wrong. He only moved close enough for his warm shoulder to touch hers. For a while, they sat on the floor and listened to the rain. Slowly, Lumi's breathing softened. She took off her scarf. The cottage began to feel like home again. Some welcomes do not need questions. They do not ask us to arrive cheerful, useful, or ready to talk. They simply say, "You are here now. You can put the day down. You are home." The next evening, Maple sat beside the dark window. He told Lumi he was watching the rain, but his tail had not moved for a long time. Maple was usually easy to read. Joy traveled through his whole body. Tonight, even his ears seemed tired. Lumi noticed, but she did not turn his sadness into a problem he had to solve. She crossed the room and switched on the smallest lamp. Its amber circle reached the window seat, without chasing away every shadow. Then she brought Maple's favorite blanket, the one with the crooked stitched corner, and placed it where he could reach it. Lumi sat beside him. No questions, no speech. They watched the drops gather and slide down the glass. After a while, Maple leaned against her. His tail gave one quiet tap. Care is not always a perfect sentence. Sometimes it is a light left on, a familiar blanket within reach, and someone who notices when the room inside you has become quiet. Morning arrived, pale and cool. Lumi had fallen asleep beneath the warmest blanket in the cottage. Maple woke nearby and saw there was only a little space left. He knew what to do. At least, he thought he did. Maple had spent years making himself easy to accommodate. He stepped aside before anyone asked. He offered his chair, his place by the window, and the last warm corner of every room. So he turned quietly toward the cold floor. Lumi opened one sleepy teal eye. She lifted the edge of the blanket and patted the empty space beside her. Maple looked behind himself, certain she meant someone else. Lumi patted the blanket again. He climbed in carefully, taking up almost no room, but as the morning light grew, his body relaxed. His paws stretched. His breathing deepened. Love did not shrink when he needed something. It simply made room. Rest is not a prize for being endlessly helpful. You do not have to disappear before you are allowed to be comfortable. Sometimes the blanket was always big enough. Maple remembered that Lumi liked flowers. The trouble was, he could not remember which ones. He searched the garden path after the rain, passing tall roses and neat little violets. At last, he found a crooked daisy leaning beneath a leaf. 2 petals were missing. Its stem bent sideways. Maple thought it looked determined. He carried it home with great care. When he placed the daisy in front of Lumi, he suddenly saw every imperfection. His ears lowered. Perhaps he had chosen badly. Perhaps remembering almost was not the same as remembering enough. But Lumi lifted the daisy as if it were treasure. She found her favorite book, opened it to a quiet page, and pressed the flower inside. Years from now, the petals would be faded and thin. The care inside them would remain. Perfect gestures are rare. Most love arrives a little crooked, worried it has done the wrong thing. Honest care does not need flawless petals to matter. Sometimes the imperfect gift becomes the one we keep. Maple made everyone laugh at the little supper gathering. He balanced a spoon on his nose, bumped gently into a chair, and tilted his head until even Lumi smiled. Then, while the room was still bright with laughter, Maple slipped behind the pantry door. His cry was tiny, almost apologetic. No one in the warm room heard it. Lumi did. She followed the sound and found him curled between a basket and the flour tin. Maple looked embarrassed, as though sadness had broken a rule. Lumi did not ask him to return to the party. She sat on the pantry floor and leaned her crescent-marked chest against his shoulder. They stayed there until the laughter outside became softer, and Maple's breathing became steady. The ones who bring joy can still carry private sadness. The strong friend may be tired. The funny friend may need somewhere they do not have to perform. Check on the bright ones. Check on the helpers. Quiet pain still deserves company, even when it knows how to smile. That night, a hard storm crossed the cottage garden. By morning, the little plants were flattened, the pots were overturned, and petals covered the wet path. Lumi and Maple stood at the window. The garden had taken months to grow. Beginning again felt too large to imagine. For most of the day, they did nothing. Grief was allowed to sit with them. At sunset, Maple carried an empty cream cup to the table. He placed it carefully between them. Lumi looked at the cup, then opened a small paper packet. One seed remained. She set it beside the cup. They did not pretend tomorrow would be easy. They did not promise the next garden would look the same. They only made a little space where something new might begin. The following morning, light reached the cup before either of them woke. Hope is not always brave or bright. Sometimes it is one empty cup, one seed, and a quiet decision to leave tomorrow a place to arrive. The rain has softened now, and the cottage lamps are growing dim. Before you go, remember what Lumi and Maple learned. You are allowed to come home tired. Care can be quiet. Love can make room. Imperfect kindness still matters. Your hidden feelings deserve company, and hope can begin with something very small. Keep whichever story you need tonight. The others will be here when you return.